Polls in Solomon Islands will close in an hour's time, and the closely watched election is seen as crucial. And whoever wins it could have significant repercussions for the rest of the Asia-Pacific region. And the country is voting for the first time since cutting ties with Taiwan in favor of China, placing huge focus on Beijing's influence. For more on this, we are now joined by Dr. Meg Keen, Director of the Pacific Islands Program at Lowy Institute. Dr. Keen, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start off with this question. This election
Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Is set to be the most important to Solomon Islands since independence because there is lots at stake. Perhaps you could start by telling us, unpacking for us, what are some of the key issues?
Well, from a local perspective, it's the really hard economic times facing the locals. There is cost of living is going up. Their access to services has declined. So things like health services just aren't available when you go to a hospital, medicines, etc. But the reason the world is really focused on this is, as you mentioned, the switch to China and Prime Minister Sagabare's Look North policy, which has opened the door to China to increase its presence in the region and indeed now engage in police training and possibly, if there was unrest, even deploy armed security to the region. So we're seeing a very different security and development dynamic that is emerging. Solomon Islands is where China has the strongest foothold in the region.
Well, Dr. Keen, Solomon Islands has become entwined in the increasing geopolitical competition between China and the US and its allies. So these global powers have a vested interest in the outcome of this election. What's the keen interest all about, and how might the outcome of the polls affect them?
Well, the keen interest is because if you look where Solomon Islands is, it sits on vital sea lanes between United States and Australia. If there was a conflict in the South China Sea, this would be very important supply chains into the region. Also, this has been an area where Australia in particular has been the primary security and development partner and wants to maintain that position. This is its neighborhood. We share ocean borders with Solomon Islands, and so we want to know what's going on in that region. We want transparency and visibility as well. So this is critical. For China, this is a really important reason because they're trying to win support for their One China policy. They want global access. And there's some very valuable assets, resources like fisheries, minerals in this region.
Well, keeping that in mind, that China is trying to strengthen its One China policy, Sogaware has pledged to further bolster relations with China if he is re-elected. While his main challenges want to wind back growing Chinese influence, well, are there concerns among voters about his tilt towards Beijing?
Yes, absolutely. It's been an election issue. And as you mentioned, he has sung the praises of this increased relationship with China and that it will give development advantage to the country, more investment in infrastructure. The opposition disagrees with him. In particular, they said they would review the security agreement and possibly even chuck it out. They feel there should be a greater focus on development issues, on service provision, rather than geopolitics. And they fear that the closer relations with China is affecting transparency of government and sovereignty issues.
Now, Dr. Keen, the country's economy is really not in a good shape currently, and it's said that the establishment of diplomatic relations with China would perhaps stimulate economic growth. That is the expectation. Do you think Solomon Islands is in a sticky situation right now with the varying political views within the island itself? And does Solomon Island need Beijing more than the US?
Well, it's certainly a sticky situation because it's dividing the country. At the moment, China is Solomon Islands' largest trading partner. So they're being careful to maintain that position. It's particularly the interest in fisheries, forestry, and construction. They have delivered on road infrastructure. They have gained construction contracts for ports. These are all vital to stimulate development and growth. That being said, Australia is also a major trading partner. So that has to be balanced. The United States really hasn't had a strong presence for some time now in the region and indeed in Solomon Islands. So it's not clear as it ramps up in Solomon Islands, establishes its embassy, starts to have its Peace Corps and invest in the country, the returns on that. So yes, Solomon Islands is balancing multiple opportunities, and with that also having to balance its commitment to democracy, openness, media freedom, and other elements that are really important to the people of Solomon Islands.
Well, thank you so much for sharing and joining us on our program, Dr. Meg Keen, Director of Pacific Islands Program at Lowy Institute.